at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
And welcome everybody to another episode of our Minuteman University interviews, and we're chatting with 2A activists from around the gun community, and modeling this format after a couple of podcasts that I appreciate. The Out of Order with James Kalita podcast out of New Jersey, Riding Shotgun with Charlie, two of my favorite podcasts. They interview a lot of 2A activists. My only complaint is that they are short. They're 20 or 30 minutes long. And then Gun Freedom Radio, another of our favorite podcasts. Again, they have a lot of awesome 2A people on, but they only give them 20 minutes or so because they have so many people on. So we emulate them, or at least the Out of Order with James Kalita, in that I'm about to shut up. I'm going to introduce our guest, Aaargo Jay from Wisconsin, school teacher, Second Amendment activist, YouTuber. You're working on film, and in this chat, we'll ask you to talk about what you're doing, what you've been doing, what you're doing. We'll then transition into why you do what you do, and then we'll chat a little bit about how you do what you do. Our goal here is to give people some insight into the different 2A activists out there and you, and then why you're doing what you're doing, and then of course how, so that we can inspire some people and motivate people to do what they're doing. So it's been a tough one to get scheduled. I don't know if I'm doing this at a great time with 5 p.m. Eastern. I'm trying to do it before some of the prime time stuff happens on YouTube. But I appreciate you being willing to jump in and do this one kind of last minute. Aaargo, thanks for joining us.
Hey, no worries, man. Thanks for having me, brother. I appreciate it.
Now, I know you've been doing YouTube for at least 6 years, but it seems like I'm familiar with you longer than that. So one of my first recollections of your channel, I thought it was interesting because you're one of the few YouTube channels, at least back in the day, that was, I guess, not motivated by competition shooting or tactical, but you had like decent gear. I don't know if it's because you're in Wisconsin, you got BMC right there or what, right there, but you had decent gear, and I always thought that was cool, and you weren't like following trends and stuff. But anyway, I'll shut up. Thanks for being here. Tell us about what you've been doing, what you do.
Oh, no worries, man. Thanks. Yeah, I started on YouTube about 6 years ago. I got my inspiration off somebody a lot of us know. His name's Coleon Noir, because I didn't see too many other faces out there that looked like me, speaking about things that I believed in and that I was passionate about. And one day my buddy was like, "Hey, I got all this camera equipment, man. We might as well put it to use." So I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it. Let's run some videos, man." And that's what we did, man. We went to this little studio space he had, and we tried to, at the time, emulate the iPhone white background screen and all that kind of craziness, man. That didn't work out too well, but I think the message of the video still came across pretty strong. But, I think my motivation there and starting off was, if I have these experiences and I'm learning from other people via the internet, via social media or whatever, I'm sure people can learn from what I have to offer as I go through my journey and learn, along the way. And that's kind of the approach, and that's kind of the platform in which I based everything off of, was sharing the knowledge that I get, sharing the information that I get, because ultimately for me, it was about giving stuff to the people and making people feel comfortable. And no matter what race, no matter what color, no matter what religion or whatever, they wanted to do, I just wanted people to feel comfortable receiving the information and saying, hey, you know what? It's okay. Everyday people can like guns. Everyday people can shoot guns. Everyday people can train. Everyday people can, collect guns if they want to. There's nothing taboo or wrong about having an affinity for firearms. There's nothing wrong with that. So that's kind of why that's kind of what the reasoning was as to, why I started and how I started. So.
Right on. I think I started following your stuff back in the day because you did the same sort of thing I was doing. At least it seemed like you were doing the same kind of thing I was doing, which was just, hey, if I'm going to the range and you've got a camera, why not share it? You weren't trying to I don't know, prove nothing. You were just kind of sharing the experience, and I value that. I think that's neat. Like, say, we were kind of chatting off air a bit. That's one of the reasons we're late here. But the voices that people add, the nuance. You're in Wisconsin, so your ranges and your facilities and just the green stuff is going to be different than what it's like out here in Arizona, where everything's dry and cactuses and stuff. So
yeah, sometimes I
somebody,
think that greenery makes a better backdrop, man. But yeah.
well, I'm just thinking if somebody watches something going on out here, they might be like, "Oh, that's interesting," but that's Arizona. Like that's I don't live in Arizona, but if they're watching it and they're in Tennessee or they're in Minnesota and they're watching something in Wisconsin, that's just it adds something different. That if you only see one or two samples, I think it's great to see.
Right. I remember one video I did with the Steyr M something. I forget which model it was. The Steyr pistol. I did it in the snow, with a t-shirt on, and everybody was like, well, what the hell? I mean, and I said, hey, I live in Wisconsin, and it was a regular training day for me, but I was testing out the gun at the same time, and I figured, why not do it all at once? And we kind of got it on video. The video of the Steyr was kind of, in between training sessions or whatnot, and shooting the pistol and actually just running the pistol. But I live in a place where it gets sub-zero, and you might have to pull your firearm in sub-zero weather. Are you going to be able to manipulate your firearm? Are you going to be able to, with frozen fingers and all your other appendages icy and numb? How difficult is it going to be? Things like that. Things that the everyday person typically doesn't think about. But when I'm on the range, I'm like, hey, well, what about this or what about that? And that's kind of what I tried to do with my channel, because I didn't want to be such carbon copy and cookie cutter channel of a channel like everybody was at the time. Because I think at the time it was when everybody was getting a lot of the same gear and a lot of the same things were being reviewed, and I didn't want to be a part of that. So I kind of stayed away from that a little bit, which I think hurt me a little bit, but I really wasn't too worried or concerned about popularity. I just wanted to put quality out.
So starting in 12, YouTube had been around already. We'd gone through partner stuff. It was 12 though. It was before any of the stuff in 13 or any of the stuff at the end of 12 and all that. So like I say, what I remember from your first videos, or when I first came across your channel, and back then we had a really different YouTube community too.
We did.
With the videos you could share. I think, well, at some point they stopped that, but you could share videos in those. But there was a lot of people sharing channels, and we were aware of each other's channels and stuff. So I remember you guys were often just at the range, like say, just doing your thing. Somebody would be holding the camera or something. You mentioned that you were doing your thing, and somebody said they had some cameras and stuff. Was that person already doing YouTube videos? Had they experienced?
Not at all.
They were doing for something else, like real estate?
No, yeah, he just it was a friend of mine. Shout out to Gary. My buddy Gary just was an amateur photographer, videographer, and he was starting to build his own company because he was getting smaller jobs for commercials and things here and there. And he wanted to branch out, and he wanted to see how good of a photographer, videographer he was. So he decided to, use me as his test subject and guinea pig, or however you want to call it. But, and that's how we started, so he just, like, I didn't have to pay him anything. I mean, he's got full on equipment, lights, cameras, everything. But at the same time, it was a learning process for him too. So we both kind of benefited from everything there.
Ah, that's perfect. Well, that's some of the insight we're trying to discover with these interviews, because that's the kind of thing that if I often, being around the game for a while and in the community, I guess, whatever you want to call it, like people that are making videos, so many people will sit on the sideline saying, well, when I get a camera, or if I had the right editing equipment, or if my computer was large enough, or if I had the right microphone, or, fill in the blank. But collaborating like that and sharing resources, right?
I think at this day and age, when people are doing that, they're just making excuses because they don't really want to do it. It sounds cool to say I want to do it, but actually putting it into practice is a little bit harder, I think, for some people, because with the advancement of technology and cell phones, like on my phone right now, I can shoot 4K video all day. So uh, you really don't need all of that. Now, don't get me wrong. Like even myself, like I haven't put videos out in a while because I wasn't satisfied with the quality after a while, because I learn more and I know more now. And if I put something out, I want it to be, yes, appealing, yes, entertaining, and yes, knowledge filled and knowledgeable. And I want people to learn from it. But at the same time, I take pride in my work and I just don't want to put out anything, and I want it to be quality. So, on that end, I get it. But if people are just trying to get started, I think a lot of times they're their own worst enemy and they're the only ones in their way. Because you look at these $1 million YouTube channels and these guys making all this money that my kids watch and all this, they use a phone for a lot of them, and that's it. A phone and a couple of LED lights or something. And that's it.
And practice. And they've done
and of course practice, right. But time behind the camera. But
you gotta walk before you can run. So
that's it.
You
gotta walk before you can run. Start small, start doing some monologues, or write a script, write a couple of paragraphs and speak it in front of the camera. Try to memorize it if you can, or get yourself a cheap teleprompter, if you can afford one. Because you can get a teleprompter screen hookup for like $40, but I think that if you have a message or if you want to get something out, I think getting it out is the most important thing. So don't sit and wait till you have the most expensive cameras. Don't sit and wait on a whole camera crew and a crew. Just get up and get out and do what you got to do. Get your voice out there and get your message heard, because 9 times out of 10, everything else is just a distraction. If your message is strong enough, that's all you need. That's it. So, and I think sometimes people need to understand that their voice is their most powerful weapon, and go ahead and utilize that voice without fear, fear of retaliation, fear of embarrassment, or whatever fear you might have. Suck it up and get out there and do it. I had to. I hated speaking in front of people or on camera in my first videos. And you can tell in my first videos, but as I progressed, I became more and more comfortable with it. Now I'm not even, I don't think twice about getting in front of a camera.
No, that's interesting. As a school teacher, was that an issue at all? Or has it been an issue? Meaning
my passion for the 2A community?
Right. And sometimes we've got other school teachers around that will have, I don't know, issues where they have to do it anonymously or just have relations with the schools.
Honestly, that's why I started using a moniker instead of my actual name, because I didn't know what kind of pushback I was going to get from my school district. Now that I'm 6 years in plus, everybody knows that's what I do. I don't know if, people in administration are privy, but, most of the people that I know in my school or in other schools that I've worked, or my friends in the district, they know that I'm a gun dude, and they all come to me, number one, to get guns, or to get information on guns and training, or find out where they should go, or, I'm the go-to guy for the people in my circle, in my profession there. So, but I haven't seen too much political small p pushback, with my district at all. I try to keep things, under the table as much as I can, and I try to separate the two as much as I can. But at some point, there's going to be crossover, and I address it when it comes. But I haven't had anything negative happen yet. So.
Well, that's awesome to hear, because that seems like a real healthy situation compared to, well, some of the worries people have. I don't want to assume that there are actual, people assume there's going to be problems, but it's great to hear, because I know that other people who, and not just teachers, but in other, whatever, if they're doing some kind of YouTube project with firearms, if once they kind of get more comfortable with it, and I guess the word gets out, or whatever the phrase would be. Like you say, they end up being the go-to person and sort of a liaison, I guess, right? For when
absolutely every year I put
people know that they can ask you for like an actual perspective from from our side.
Absolutely, every year now I put together a not self-defense class, but a CCW course for people at my school, or concealed carry weapons permit course for people at my school who who are curious and want to learn. And I have about 5 people every year constantly, new people or people that are just now deciding, hey, maybe it's time for me to look into protecting myself or my home or my family or whatever. And, I do this every year. I do it at a discounted rate for, teachers, because we don't make a whole lot of money, even though we should. But, it's been pretty rewarding. I mean, I've even had a parent recognize me from a video and say, hey, man, are you Aaargo Jay? And I said, yeah. And they told me that, well, of course, they knew my real name and whatnot, and called me by my real name. But they said, hey, I'm so glad that you were at the school. And this is right after they watched the video about arming teachers in schools, which is a whole, buzz topic, and I said, yeah, I'm here, man. I'm here. So I'm glad, man. My kids are only going to go to the school while you're here, and they felt like their children were more protected, even though I don't carry a firearm in school. You know what I mean? So it's that kind of irony, and it's that kind of acceptance that I was not expecting that makes this kind of thing worth it. You know what I mean? Like I expected totally the opposite, and here it is. I have parents saying, "Hey, I love what you do. I'm glad my kid. I feel safer with my kids here with you here." And
it's that I don't know if they would understand it, but it's that they acknowledge that you've got the mindset to be aware, right? You're
right.
You're living in yellow, not in white, like probably a lot of people.
Right. And my friends call me paranoid a lot of times, because instead of like going directly to my vehicle or something, I'll look under the vehicle. I make a sweep around the vehicle before I get in it, or like when I come home at night, I always drive around my house instead of going directly in to look for anything that's off, and it's not because I'm paranoid, but it's because, like you said, there's a certain awareness, there's a certain mentality that we have to have, because evil doesn't care. And when evil rears its head, it will strike anything or anyone in its path. And I don't want that to be me or the people that I love, so I do things a little differently. So yeah, I live in yellow a little bit more so than most people.
Now on the YouTube side, Vanessa Kitty says, thank you for offering discounts for teachers. That's coming from a teacher.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like I said, and shout out to you. Thanks for what you do. I think we're the unsung service of our country. Nobody talks about the teachers, guys who served and guys that I know, my buds that served and all that. They get all the accolades, of course, and deservedly so. But we're fighting a whole different war every day, especially those in more challenging institutions, I'll say. Wherever you want to place those challenging institutions, that's what it is. But for those of us who work in more challenging institutions of learning, you know what I'm talking about. It's a battle, and we're absolutely fighting a war each and every day. And we sometimes don't get the credit that we deserve. Most times, I should say, don't get the credit that we deserve. It's not that we're looking for it, but at the same time, it'd be nice,
Well, awareness. It's a culture war, and I think that I think you're talking about just all educators in general, but as far as educators that are pro 2A and have a mindset of liberty and individual freedom, I imagine you've got I want to give you even more kudos, because you've got to kind of stand in from both sides. You've got it coming from both ends, and you've got to stand against the current going both directions.
I do. And I mean, being a teacher, of course, there's a union, and I'm anti-union. That's just me personally, though. So I'm not a member of the union. So everybody's like, well, aren't you worried that your job's on the line? I said, if my job is on the line, that means I'm doing something I shouldn't be doing, and my job needs to be on the line. That's just how I view it, though. You know what I mean? So, if I ever come into contact or come into a situation that I need, representation, that's what an attorney's for. I think a lot of times that I don't know. I think I'm just not your typical black dude, for the most part, when people look at me, but at the same time, I am. So it's a little bit different. It's a little bit weird sometimes having conversations with people, and then you see them look at you like you can see their wheels turning, like, this dude's different. Like, this dude's not what I thought.
that's how society evolves. So thank you for being there and doing it, because it's easy to do nothing and watch everything continue, but to stand up and just be and be willing to deal with it all. That's how we evolve. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
So we're getting towards the halfway point. We've been chatting for a bit, but I don't want to leave anything out. We talked about YouTuber. I don't want to pinhole you as a YouTuber.
That's fine. That's fine.
That's beneath you for one thing, because you do more than that. So you've got the film coming up, but it sounds like you've done some training and stuff too. So let me kind of jump back to when you first started deciding to share stuff on YouTube with the YouTube channel. Where let me kind of go rewind before that. How did you get into shooting, and where were you at in your shooting kind of lifespan when you went into YouTube? And then has that accelerated, changed the pace of your evolution as a shooter once you had like the influence of YouTube? That's a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah. When I started, I was an average guy. I knew the 4 firearm safety rules. You know, I knew what I had learned off of YouTube and what I had learned from other people. But I had no real training or experience with firearms. I had owned firearms for years, prior to YouTube. And even, you know, had a lot of, I was first introduced to firearms when I was a child by my grandfather, learning to shoot a his 22 in the backyard. You know, well, it's a huge backyard, by the way. It's not anything unsafe. But, you know, and I think like most boys, you know, I hate to speculate because I'm sure there's some young ladies who grew up this way too. But like most boys, I grew up loving guns and cars and all that kind of stuff. However, one time, my father ended up buying me a Beretta M9 cap gun. And I thought this was before the whole orange tab thing and everything. This gun looked real. And I was so proud of this gun. I never played with it. I kept it in the drawer. I kept it in a box like it was a real firearm. And I think that was the time that I knew that I was hooked on firearms, because I would notice myself, or I would find myself back in the day looking in the J.C. Penney's catalogs or the Sears catalogs in the firearms section, because you could do that back then. That's how old I am. so
I remember those days.
Yeah,
and you'd be looking at the different rifles and stuff, trying to figure out what you could do with them.
Like I remember I used to look at M16s and say those are so ugly back in the day, and now like I love them. Like, you know, but it's just, I don't want to lose you. Are you there?
Yep, we're still here.
Okay, I dropped my phone. Sorry about that. So, you know, it's just that whole evolution of me as a shooter. So I was pretty novice starting YouTube, pretty novice. And then the training starts to happen, and then you learn what you don't know. And then you say, wow, I really don't know jack squat. You know, and then you want to share that with other people. And then that's kind of what I was trying to do with things. I would go down and hook up with other YouTubers, like Iraq veteran people who have welcomed me into the fold and in their homes, and have taken me, you know, taken me further than I could have gone by myself. Because if it wasn't for these people, Fate of Destiny at the time, you know, these people really looked out for me as a new YouTuber and getting me acclimated for, number one, proper shooting on camera, because the internet is forever and it's unforgiving. And that's, I think, is something that people need to learn when they're going to put themselves on film or on camera or present themselves to people when they're shooting. I just got a call recently from a major company, a friend of mine that works at a major firearms related company, asking me about another individual who is looking for sponsorship for them. And they were coming to me like, hey, what do you think of this person? And their gripe was, in one of their videos, they were showing some unsafe fire handling techniques, you know, and I think that it was just unintentional and accidental and not ignorance on their part. But people look at everything when you're on television. They will dissect everything that you do to the most minute degree. And learning that is a lesson in and of itself, because you think that I'm just going to go on YouTube and I'm just going to show what I know, and I'm just going to do this. People will eat you up. Oh, your trigger discipline sucks, or you flagged this, that, and the other, or you swept your foot, or, you know, and it seems like nothing or just nitpicking, but it's real. These are things that when we're on range, we make sure that we're loud about and that everybody is following the safety rules and being safe, you know. So on camera, you have to make sure that you're doing the right things too. And I think learning the ins and outs of being in front of people publicly was something that I had to learn. And a lot of people, you know, took me in, and as part of my progression, you know, that was part of my learning process. So, you know, after the, you know, training with a couple of local trainers, and then the YouTube community helping me out, and then seeking more advanced training from more advanced trainers, uh, you know, you begin to learn just how far you can go in this community, and how far and how many things you can learn that are related to firearms. And most things aren't even related to firearms. Most things are about mentality and giving yourself options other than the firearm. And I think a lot of times the firearm becomes the focal point, but there's so much more to our community that needs to be learned and needs to be shared, that you know, I feel like everybody should have a camera with them when they're doing something at some points, you know? So.
Answering the question on the gun channel side, but that, as you're describing that, it makes me think, I guess, of like maybe like a guitar. Like anybody can buy a guitar, research guitars, own a collection of guitars, and we all know that doesn't make you a musician.
Stevie Ray Vaughan, right? So,
but you can also just buy a guitar and practice with it and get really good, but then still value like learning another type of music, right? Like, okay, I've learned rock and roll, I want to learn country, or I want to learn blues or something. And that's where I think when we talk about, because as you were talking about experience in firearms training and getting into it, people hear that, and it's one of those polarizing things, I think, because people have an assumption of what training is, but it's, from my experience with training, is the interest in training is the experience with the different instructors and the different approaches to basically the same thing. Like you're you know, it's just like a guitar or something. There's a certain amount of chords, but the range of music that can come out of them based on, you know, the influence and the skill set of the person playing it is vast, right? And the same with firearms. You're basically making a gun shoot and keeping it running. It's just that when a SEAL has training and knowledge, you know, they come at it a different way than a law enforcement, and they're going to come at it differently than a competition shooter. And going to these trainings and experiencing the different curriculums has been really interesting to me. And I think that's one of those things that I value on your channel too, is because you've obviously had some interest and pleasure with that, and you're sharing it in a good way. I've never been able to express or share the experience of a class very well, I don't think.
Right. And I think, you know, more so now, like, and for those of you listening, my channel has been down for a while. Not gone, just down. I haven't added any new things because I didn't know where I fit in for a long time. Okay. Coming into this community was very new to me, and it was something that I really wasn't ready for because I wasn't coming into it trying to become or be a celebrity. Okay. The celebrity is the furthest thing from my mind. And I even hate using that term, but in our community, certain people view it as such. And that's not what my intention was. My intention was always to share what I have or what I learned with other people. And the funny thing is, I learned, I'm sorry, I'm getting text messages as we speak. I learned the hard way that training and going to the range are two different things, you know? And I learned because a lot of times people who shoot or own firearms, they say, oh, I'm good if I just go to the range and I stand here and I shoot this paper at 7 yards or at 15 yards or at however many yards, you know, and that's great. And that's good. That's great for mechanical repetition, muscle memory, things like that, just getting yourself used to doing things correctly. But training is something different. Training prepares you for real world scenarios and that, oh no, it's real moment. You know what I mean? And I'm pausing because I'm used to cursing like a sailor, and I know you said we don't curse on the live show, so I'm trying
If
to
it's
I'm
exclusive,
trying to
no big
check
deal.
myself here.
No big
So,
deal.
but no, still somebody might be riding home with their kid in the car, and I want that child to know curse words are bad for grown-ups. But anyway, but seriously though, so training though, it's so different. It's so multifaceted.
It's
You
the
know,
application of the skill sets you develop at the range.
it is. It absolutely is. And this is what you're going to depend on when it's go time, not what you're doing here with this static target. Okay. I mean, the static target the target can be static in a training session. Yeah, that's fine. But what you're learning is different than just going to the range, dumping boxes of ammo downrange. Okay. So, my first thing to anybody and everybody is train, 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 and train accordingly. If you are a beginner, it is okay. Take beginner classes. Don't go buy the most expensive HK and then jump to an intermediate class and you can't even grip your pistol right, because I've seen that. And I've seen how dangerous that is in a training class. Okay. And I've had trainers, my buddy Rob Pincus is one of them. I've had trainers say, hey, you're not ready. You've got to go. Because people think that, hey, it's the same thing as getting on the range and shooting, at a static target 7 yards away. It's not the same. You've got other people around you, guns going off next to your head. You've got movement. You've got a trainer barking at you. You've got all these different elements that you have to, be aware of, but at the same time, be able to focus on what it is you need to do with that firearm. Because at the end of the day, that's what matters. And if you don't get it, or if you can't get it, then you need to check yourself accordingly, because you're not going to gain anything. You're going to lose money, first of all, because now you've wasted, anywhere from $100 to $700 or $1,000 or more, depending on what trainer you go see. And you didn't gain anything. You didn't add anything to your personal toolbox. You've only put yourself back instead of putting yourself in a forward position, and that's not good. So train according to your level, huh?
I was just going to summarize by like overshooting or like trying to jump to the front of the line, like just like you're saying.
Right, because we all do that. When we're shooters, what's the first thing you do? You go and look for the most tactical stuff you can find, the most stuff that looks, the most hardcore and that looks cool. And, next thing you know, you're going to your local range kitted up like you're kicking doors down, man. Like, no, that's not what's going on. That's not what it is. So let's dial it down a notch. Let's dial it down. Let's be realistic. Let's say that, hey, I'm Joe Blow, plumber from Racine, Wisconsin. Okay. I don't need to be tacked out going to the range. But what I do need to do is learn how to, number one, maintain my firearm. Number two, properly hold, shoot, and holster my firearm, and then we'll go from there. We'll take things as they progress, or as it progresses. But people want to jump in, and they want to, especially when the Magpul DVDs came out, bro. Oh my God. Like when the Magpul DVDs out, everybody wanted to take a Costa class, and they just bought their first gun 3 days ago. Like it's like, it was ridiculous. So I think that's what a lot of my advice to people was, like, don't just get your concealed carry license and start carrying a gun. That's stupid. That's like giving a 16-year-old their license for the first time and then giving them a car without having driver's ed. You know what I mean? No, it's not what you do. You have to learn how to use that tool properly. You have to learn how to be safe for yourself and for other people. And then you start the process of actually getting behind the wheel or getting behind the trigger and things like that. So, yeah, I definitely think that, my progression was the normal progression of most people. Most people think I just came out, tacked out, and that's not the case. I had to learn how to be a tactical thinker, not how I dress, but a tactical thinker, and how to apply proper mindset to my everyday life, and then, share that with other people. But everybody wants to get to the top without climbing the mountain, so we got to climb that mountain though.
So without getting, training is an interesting one. I know that it kind of comes up. You've seen it now over the years. Like it'll kind of come in waves where maybe, I don't know, whatever starts it, but then people will chat about it for a bit, and then it's completely ignored for a long, long time. And then something will happen and everybody will be on people's minds again. So it seems like right now we're hearing more chatter about training from both ends, the anti and the pro. So in the future, I might try to do something, have some people on that have some experience with various firearms training, and get in and just kind of shoot the breeze about our experiences, and hopefully shed some light on that, because I think, again, so many people just have misperceptions of what it actually is.
They are. There are a lot of misconceptions.
But one of the things that I like to do on the show, and you kind of address it in the description of what you've been doing, but to give you a chance to just answer the open-ended question, why you do what you do. And again, most people that in fact, everyone we've talked to, nobody's got a sugar mama or an angel investor who funds everything. Very few people, nobody I've talked to comes from Hollywood or something where they just were born in front of a camera and can without any effort produce videos and do that kind of stuff. So everybody's evolving and doing their thing, and that requires motivation and a drive and something to keep you going past some of the stuff. Now, you've mentioned that you had some help initially with the YouTube community. You mentioned Destiny and Eric, and they kind of gave you some of the, I guess, some guidance over some of the speed bumps, which give you probably some advantage to keep it motivated. But still, none of this stuff is completely free reign for anybody. So with that, as open as I can make it there, rambling here, let me pause and just ask you why you do what you do.
Simple answer, man. The people. I'm a person of the people. My life has been a life of service, and it will continue to be, because we cannot function on this rock without each other. We just can't. And I think everything in life is meant to be divisive. We've got like whatever you do, you've got different factions for this particular thing, whatever, and everything in life. We're always so divided. I feel like, as an American citizen, in what I feel is the greatest country on earth, and I'm sure you share that sentiment as well, but in what I feel is the greatest country on earth, this country is not the country that it was in 1776. This country is very colorful, to say the least. And I don't just mean that as far as race. I mean that as far as everything. And I think that if we don't start looking at it in its totality, then that's the quickest way we lose this country. And everything I have done has been for the people. I don't care if you're a conservative. I'm conservative as they come, okay? But does that stop me from sharing information with people who are liberals? No. Does that stop me from sharing information from people who are not Christian? No. Or who don't believe in God at all? No. It doesn't matter. I don't care what you do, who you are, as long as you're not going to hurt people intentionally, maliciously, and anything that goes against the code of conduct and the law that we've adopted here in our country. But other than that, it's all about the people. It's just about the people, because if it isn't for us or about us, then there's a problem, and we need to stick together. And I need to share with you. You need to share with me. People that I don't know probably have something that I could benefit from, and I have something that they could benefit from. And why not put it out there for all to see? So that's kind of why I did what I did and do what I do, because it's always, for me, about the people. It's never about me and anything personal with me. It's always about everybody else. I put me last and I put everybody else in front of me. And I'm fine with that, because I'd rather people come up to me and say, hey, can I get a picture with you? I'd rather sit down and have a beer with you and talk to you and find out, what your kids' names are, like what you like, what you want to do. It's not about that. I'm a people person. So I hate that word too, that term, people person, but I am a people person. And I can't help it. I can't get away from that. I talk to everybody. And I feel like I need to help everybody. And however I can, I will. And I'm committed to that. So that's why I do what I do.
Awesome answer. And I know it's there's no way I can describe. We were just doing a chat last night, and actually the other day we did a chat. And you know the channel Smarter Every Day?
I've heard of it. I've never watched it.
He's a pretty big YouTube channel. He does sort of, I don't know, just, I don't want to pigeonhole him to say science experiments, but I'm just going to say he does science experiments for lack of a, more better description of his channel. But he does interesting stuff, and he, Smarter Every Day kind of describes his channel. And he did something about the YouTube logarithms that Al from Gun Channels had dropped on us when we were having this chat the other day. And I went through and watched about an hour of this series of 3 videos. And this guy, Smarter Every Day, this YouTube channel, goes into some really interesting stuff. So I've been sharing that with people, and we had this in-depth chat last night off air. And the summary of it was exactly what you said there. Like, what is going to change, or what is going to keep us the great country that we are. I don't agree that we're failing or dying or anything. There's definitely people who are wishing us would, but no, we're here and we're awesome. And I travel this country. We're an awesome country. And what's going to keep us that way is, like you say, a lack of fear of our brothers and sisters and neighbors and friends, and working together and cherishing that above the easy, agenda-based garbage that gets programmed to us.
Right.
Certainly divisive. It's engineered to be divisive, and because that keeps people, in line. It keeps them easy to deal with, and it's good if you're trying to capitalize or exploit the people. But if you just want to seriously see them prosper and be free and happy, then everything we were talking about here is just an answer. So anyway, that was super interesting that your answer was dead on to what more than one source has described as the solution, or the continued solution to prosperity in our country. So
and it's funny though, like I keep hearing it, but I don't see anybody that actually has the ability and power to make those changes adopting that mindset. You know what I mean? I don't. And it's sad, and I don't think our country is in any under any threat of being a weaker country, or we haven't lost a step as a country. I think, in fact, that we've grown as a country, even through all of our divisiveness and all of our ups and downs, because every country, everything goes through ups and downs,
Heck yeah,
but
so strong.
Right.
We overcome.
Absolutely.
Come out stronger.
And that's kind of the point I was making. What do they do to steel and iron to make it stronger? They beat the crap out of it. You know what I mean? So our country has been beaten. We as a people have been beaten, some more than others. But like I said, as a whole, as a country, we've been beaten. They've tried to break us, and we're still standing strong. But the only way that we can continue to do so is if we stop being so divisive and start to hold on to the people next to us, regardless of if all of their ideals are in line with ours or not. I know we talked about this, and after this most recent AmCon in Chicago, I stopped blasting liberals about anti-gun stuff, because I met 2 young ladies who changed my whole perception of that.
And I'm going to let you talk about them, but I'm going to add that those 2 females also, and I don't know, I'm sexist or whatever, those 2 girls changed my thinking as well. Like, that was the best. Well, actually, I liked your speaking. I like Kevin's talk from AmCon as well, but those 2 specifically. Go ahead. I'll just wanted to add that.
Oh, no, definitely. These young ladies, Sarah and Tiffany. I said Lisa before, but Tiffany are 2 Black liberal women who are 100% in support of the Second Amendment. So much so that when she was confronted and stood in front of a room full of conservative gun owners, she became so passionate that her tears is what made me listen. Her tears are what made me, or what caught me. Because if you're that passionate about it, that you are moved to tears, this is real. And I can no longer say that it's just fuddy-duddy hogwash. No, this is real. If this is real for her, it's real for other people too. And if it's real for them, that makes it real for me, regardless if I'm liberal or not, because I'm not. But now I can no longer say the things that I said that would alienate them and that would potentially deter them from being a part of our community, because that is what's happening. We are deterring a lot of people, a lot of brothers and sisters in arms, because like I said, in this 2A community, we're fighting a war, we're waging war every day against people who are anti-gun. And we are losing combatants to our own divisiveness. We are losing,
I think, and it's because people haven't had that insight, because it's just easy and it's traditional to say the left or the liberals or whatever. Blah, blah, blah.
Right, and I get it. It is there are a lot of liberal politicians out there who are anti-gun, and it seems like the liberals are pushing the agenda more so than any. But I put a post up the other day. Look at Lindsey Graham. You know what I mean? He's not liberal, and he's not pro-gun. So, I mean, what, can I? I can no longer just blame the liberal front for that. I can't. I have to put the blame where blame is due, and I have to be concerned and careful with what I say, because I don't want, if I'm for the people, I can't alienate any particular group of the people. Okay. So I can no longer pigeonhole liberals under one particular black cloud. I can't do it, because I don't agree with that group politically is one thing. But I think it's far time that the Second Amendment community lets go of a lot of its capital P politics. You know what I mean? Like, it is, because we're all fighting the same fight. And yes, some people would say, but yeah, it makes sense to be on the side that's trying to fight with you. Yeah, I get that. But she's trying to keep myself from cursing. But look at that other side. There are a ton of people on that other side who are saying, hey, look at me. I'm here too. And without them, we can't win that fight. And we won't win the fight if we continue to do that. So I have since stopped my blaming of the liberalism and liberal America outwardly, because I don't want to alienate and isolate people who are new, because people who are new to the community and new to guns, that newness is fragile. And depending on how they're treated and how they're received and what happens, they can sway either way. And if we want to bring them on, we want to make them welcome. So we need to be more welcoming to everybody. That's why I love Tony Simon. I don't know if you guys who are listening are familiar with Tony Simon, but his event, the 2A is for everybody, 2A4E, you might see it around, is real. The Second Amendment is for everyone, every single American citizen, whether you're Christian or Muslim, whether you're straight, whether you're gay, whether you're black, white, red, yellow, brown. I don't care. The Second Amendment is for everyone. If you call America home, then it's for you. And until we start getting until we start coming together on that front, we're going to face a lot of uphill battles.
Yeah, we're big fans of Tony and the 2A4E project that he's been doing, for 5 years?
Yeah, I just met Tony for the first time this NRA. Tony is really, really a good dude. I hate when people say, oh, he's a good dude. How do you know? You know what I mean? Because you met him and talked with him for an hour or two. But I got to hang out with Tony pretty much, a couple of days, during this last trip. And I got to say, man, my hat goes off to this guy, because he's really putting his money where his mouth is.
Exactly. In New Jersey, for crying out loud, he's doing
in Jersey. Like, come on.
Yeah, it's an inspiration. So, just to play host here and try to keep it to close to an hour, I want to hit the how part, and we've had a couple of questions come in I've been ignoring because I think they fit into this how section of the show. Okay. But yeah, anytime you want to come on, and when Tony's got time, he comes on. I do workshops, 2A workshops. I talked to you a bit off air. My goal is to try to get as much 2A media people working together as much as possible. So on Saturdays and on I've been doing it on Tuesday. I think I'm going to switch it to Wednesdays. I just open up a room like this for a few hours, and so that we can collaborate and network and chat about whatever. Ideally get people working on Patreon so that everybody gets funded, and so that we can move on past that issue and move in towards like say sharing resources and skill sets and whatnot. But anyway, so I'll start including you in the links. And
okay, definitely.
anytime, no obligation, but you're always welcome. And like I say, I just want to have as much open communication as we can. But yeah, Tony jumps in all the time, and he does so much. It's like I say, that's one of the motivations for me to keep going. So one of the questions from the gun channel side is from David. He asked earlier, do you ever delete your old videos because you're not happy with them, or when you go back and then whatever?
There's one video in particular that I would love to take down. And it's me, Destiny, and this Coast Guard dude. His name was Coasty Mike, I think. And we were training on an open range, and like that's probably one of the videos that I would take down if I would take them down. But I try when I edit my videos, I try to remove anything that is unsafe, that is not true. If it's a falsehood, or if I misspeak or something, or if it just doesn't translate to something that the people could use. I'm not going to do a training video and train with a bunch of Marsoc Raiders. You know what I mean? I'm not going to do that, because that's not what the everyday person is going to encounter. Now, what will they encounter? Potentially, maybe them and a buddy getting caught up in a bad situation while they're out, on the town one night. Yeah, that's more feasible. That's more likely. So let's train for those kind of events. So if it doesn't have that actual realism, then I try to remove it. But I haven't removed any videos, even though one of my videos irks the heck out of me. It's my main video, actually. I've got over almost 2 million views on it now, on the one video. And it's just the video about my AR-15 story. People call me a liar all the time. People call me a drug dealer. And a lot of this only comes and happens because I'm black, and seeing a black man with a gun, oh, he's a drug dealer. Come on now. I don't even know what the inside of a jail looks like other than working at a jail. You know what I mean? So no, I couldn't tell you what the criminal aspect or criminal side of things look like, but yet and still this video brings me all kind of fodder every day that I have to fend off. It's funny and it gives me life at this point, but those are also things that I had to learn in the beginning to have a thick skin, because the internet is rough.
Well, I appreciate that. We talk to females sometimes, and I can't imagine, the kind of stuff they have to deal with on the internet. Of course, with your situation, you've got to deal with, all different kinds of stuff with the school and with everything else. And I think that it's, I want to give you again, thanks for doing it, because those that do weather through it, or, persevere through it, you have a unique finger on the pulse to what's going on out there. And then, additionally, you are collaborative and you interact with other people that are working out here. So you're able to contribute some of that. And that's an aspect that I'll never see on the internet, right? And it's an aspect that Destiny will never see, because she's coming, from a different place, and, different people are coming to see that. So it's that contribution that we all can add that makes, like I say, the gives us the opportunity to evolve past all this. I'm going to take a second, and even though it's your show, I want to just give a shout out to Destiny. I don't know, maybe we'll chat a bit off air, but we haven't seen her in a while. And she was, again, an inspiration. She was an awesome YouTube channel, awesome person.
Destiny was just a great person. Her whole team was full of good people.
Sure.
And they literally live maybe 20 minutes from me, and I have no idea where they are or what happened to them. So I pray everything is okay and that they're doing well, and that she's happy in whatever's going on in her life right now.
Well said.
But
that's the kind of thing that keeps us going, and the reason I'm continuing to do this. I don't just see this as frivolity or entertainment. There's serious potential here, and Destiny is an example of that, right?
Oh, she definitely was. I mean, there were no female gun channels as prominent as Destiny's at the time.
She did it so deliberately not gun bunny.
Yeah. Oh, she was definitely anti-gun bunny, and so not a gun bunny. My first time meeting her, watch this. I didn't have any cameras at first, Okay, remember when I told you my buddy gave me a camera or whatever? He had his whole camera set up. Well, prior to that, Destiny and her team, which was her dad and some other people, met me out in a town called in Brookfield. We sat at McDonald's. They loaned me cameras that they weren't using until I got and bought my cameras. I never met them ever prior to that day. They came, sat down, we ate lunch, we talked. They loaned me $400 or $500 worth of cameras at the time, just to get my feet wet and to get content out there. Who does that nowadays? So
Yeah.
that age of YouTuber is, almost a thing of the past.
Oh no, we're still out there. They're definitely still out there. There
are.
Focus. Destiny was, exemplary. She had a.
And like a lot of the smaller channels, do you remember Ebb's House of Guns?
Yep.
House of Guns? He's another one. When the whole magazine ban thing came and we couldn't get the 40-rounder, the Magpul 40-rounders anywhere, this man sent me his personal 40-round magazines and said, hey, do all the filming you need, get them back to me. Whenever you get them back to me, I filmed with them and I got them back. And, just that kind of connection to people, just that kind of, it's what I'm talking about. That's the kind of synergy that I'm talking about. That's the kind of camaraderie and working together that is going to be needed to, keep fighting this fight. And people just came out of the woodwork. So many YouTube channels and YouTubers were like, hey, you're doing what I'm doing for the same reasons. Here, let me help. And it's something that was just awesome. And I think now it's just kind of tainted by the celebrity effect of it all a little bit.
Well, we've had I suspect that what we've had is the time on the clock. So people have been allowed to grow and become established, where at the time frame we're talking about 2012, 13, 14, not only was the community itself evolving still quite a bit, channels was still growing and becoming established and kind of getting their places in the rankings or whatever, but we were also dealing with the tremendous satisfaction of resistance to Obama's 23 executive actions, and that sense of accomplishment. We were dealing with just a lack of resources, right, with the ammo scarcities and stuff.
So the shortages
for sure. But YouTube did nothing to, I'm not saying YouTube deliberately did anything to us as a community. They just evolved as a corporation and did nothing to foster that community. So we did lose something. And then, there's things that have happened since we built gun channels in the end of 2013. As a result of what we saw was the dispersion of that community and the people like, well, I don't want to call it Destiny because we have no idea what happened to her or why she decided to stop doing what she was doing. But when you see channels like hers and others that we could mention for our days, and there's seriously hundreds of them that were excellent efforts that either get discouraged or stop for lack of resources or motivation, that's something that we can all be part of removing, right? We can help remove some of those things, and especially when we see something like the Patreon projects. Talk a bit and about how people can help buy you a cup of coffee and how you support your channel. But when we see successful firearms projects on the Patreon platform that are in the tens and tens of thousands of dollars a month, being funded at massive levels, we know that there are motivated audiences that are interested in being financially participants in the creation of content that's valid. So there are people working to keep the valid voices out there and removing hurdles like motivation and funding and access and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so, again, I'm just going to be a bad host and mention and jump back to a moment or a bit ago when you had referenced the AmCon, and that's an awesome, valuable, valid effort that's in its it'll be in its third year. So the Gun Rights Policy Conference is a yearly event put on by the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms and the Second Amendment Foundation. I think this year it'll be its 35th year. the national level and state level gun owners' rights groups get together and take the stage. They'll let us know what they're doing, what they've done, what they need. Then there'll be discussion groups on areas of interest and focus groups and stuff. It's a conference, so there'll be events going on for 2 days. The day before on Friday, for the last 2 years, this will be the 3rd year they've done AmCon, which I don't know what that stands for because I don't remember, but it's basically a 2A media conference the day before the GRPC.
GRPC, yeah.
And that's where we got to actually say, hey, I don't know if we actually seen each other at SHOT or something before that, but that's a chance we had to actually say hello to each other, was at that AmCon, and that's what you mentioned earlier. And I just wanted to take a moment. If you're creating content, if you consider yourself part of the 2A media, value your voice. We are all part of the 2A media. The First Amendment is the freedom of the press and freedom of speech. Those are as valid as the Second Amendment, and they protect each other. So you are part of the 2A media. If you are able to get yourself to Phoenix, if you are interested in being part of the resistance to the antis, there's seriously no better way to motivate the people that are in charge of the organizations, the people that founded these organizations, the people that run the organizations that you're familiar with, Gun Owners of America, Second Amendment Foundation, FPC, the state organizations that are leading the way in things like constitutional carry and suppressors for hunting and reciprocity, in removing universal background checks, ideally. These people will be at the Gun Rights Policy Conference. To stand on the stage and look out at a full room is the kind of motivation that you cannot pay for with a $20 a year donation to an organization. Those are valid and necessary, but if you can get yourself to Phoenix, then do so on September 20th of this year. And if you consider yourself part of the 2A media, contact, I guess, the Polite Society podcast and try to get an invite or get invited to the AmCon. So I just wanted to take a moment and mention both of those because they're valid, and that's hopefully you can plan on being there this year.
I'll be there for sure. barring some exigent circumstances, I'll be there. So
right on. So we didn't really get to address how so much, but I don't know how restricted you are to an hour. If you got time.
No, I'm good. I've got time.
Okay.
I mean, my how is short though. Like how do I do what I do? It's just do it. You just do it. Like we talked about a minute ago. We briefly mentioned and touched on a lot of the channels that have died off or died down. Like my channel has been dormant for a very long time, but that's because I didn't want to. When I came on, I was the second largest Black YouTuber behind Coleon Noir as far as guns go. Okay, because even my buddy Hank hadn't gained the popularity, even though he had been doing it longer than me. He hadn't gained the social popularity at that point. And I was getting a lot of offers from a lot of different companies to do this, to do that, and the other, and I was fine with that. But I've always been an honest person, and I've always wanted to give honest reviews, because I would see reviews on products that I was looking at prior to starting my own YouTube, and I would always feel like you could tell the ones who were kind of paid to do a review, and when the review was more of a commercial than an actual review, and I didn't want that. And companies, and I had no idea at the time, companies were legitimately sending checks to do things, and I have never accepted a single solitary check because I told the companies, I said, I want to give an honest review because people are they're trusting their lives to whatever product. And if the product does not work or is faulty or doesn't work for everyone, then I'm not going to endorse it. And the review is going to say just that. Some companies say, yeah, that's what we want, so, and those are the companies that I rocked with. Those that were like, yeah, well, no, I'm good on you. And some people took the product, and that's fine. That's them. But I'm not going to create content just to get a paycheck. Now, the paycheck would help, yeah, but the amount of people that wouldn't benefit from the information far outweighed whatever potential check I could have gotten. So and that's kind of why I didn't do the paid interviews, and I stopped after a while because everybody was getting the same product. As soon as something comes out, there's 20 videos on the same product. And if I'm the 21st, what makes people want to watch my video as they've just watched 20 videos of the same gun or the same piece of gear? So I paused for a while. I went on hiatus to figure out how I wanted to come back and how I wanted to reapproach. And in my hiatus, I found the need to produce and write that documentary. For those of you that don't know, I wrote a documentary called Black Ops, and it's an acronym. It stands for Black Opinion in Popular Society. And the documentary is going to try to shed light on how African Americans, specifically African American males. I hate the word African American, by the way, because I've never seen Africa. Yes, my ancestors may be from Africa, but I'm an American. But I say African American to be politically correct, but I absolutely hate that terminology. So I just say black. But anyway, Black Americans and guns always are perceived with a negative connotation, and that's not always true. That's not true. I just put a post on Instagram about a guy who stopped a pedophile from doing God knows what to some 12-year-old girl, but the media reported it ridiculous. The media didn't call the pedophile a pedophile. They called the guy that shot the pedophile a shooter, giving him a negative terminology, or you know what I mean? And they just kind of downplayed the whole incident. And this young black man saved whatever 12-year-old girl from whatever series of horrific events that were about to happen to her.
Well, it was his daughter, right?
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
And it was in her room.
Oh, so you knew about it. Okay, you heard about it. Okay.
Oh, heck yeah. And I think didn't want to interrupt you there, but I believe there's deliberate intent to manipulate impression or whatever you want to say, because, and if someone didn't take any effort to scrutinize the story of that, the meat of the story, just scanned a headline, it's a horrible warp of the actual situation to leave someone if they're scanning headlines. I think it's more than if it is
deliberate.
It's deliberate, intentional device to stir up to create divisiveness and it's yellow journal. I don't know if it's even yellow. It's bad.
It's bad. It's bad. This man saved this girl's life potentially. His daughter. What father is not supposed to protect their child? And when he does so, is he not automatically a hero? Why was this man not given a hero's welcome? Instead, he was vilified and slandered in the media. And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. And I feel like if this would, and I don't play the race card. I never lived my life playing the race card and said, oh, that just happens because I'm black. Even if situations and circumstances were that, I never spoke on them because my father raised me a little bit differently. It was like, my father said, yeah, things are going to happen differently to you because you're black. But how you act and how you react is what matters. So think before you act. So I never led with the race card because that's not who I was. I was a man first. I was black second. And because I'm a black man, I do understand. I do teach my son that he does live in America that was founded on a lot of racist principle, sadly. And people are going to treat you differently at times. But at the same time, you have to understand what it means to be a man, regardless of color. And when your manhood stands, everything else will stand behind you. So, that's what I teach my son. But anyway, what parent, what father is not a hero from saving their child from such a horrific thing? Why is he not a hero? Nobody, and when I posted the story, you should have seen all the DMs I got. Is this real? Is that fake? Is that real? No, this was real.
Yeah, because it looks like a manipulated, like almost like a meme, like a weird meme or a joke or something, like a exaggeration, right? But
no, that was legitimate. And this man and his daughter are now sitting safe. She's safe at home and didn't have to do that. What if he had not been there? What if he didn't have a gun to protect his family? What kind of horrible father would he have been then if he just let something happen? You see what I mean? So like it's a catch-22. Like he's damned if he did and he's damned if he didn't.
Oh, and we're all, and they've taken us all in court, involved us all, because the way they've phrased it, he's the shooter.
He's
So
the
now
shooter.
they take shooting, which what we do on the weekends, we're shooters, and they slap it onto our murderer. But in this case, a justified person who had to use lethal force to defend his
hero.
Right.
Right.
And well, okay, so but this is an example, a recent example of the documentary, or what the documentary's focusing on.
Exactly. Just that kind of mentality, trying to break those stigma and that train of thought. It's very hard for me to film a documentary, one, because I'm not a filmmaker, but I want this film to be very real, and I want it to actually be a film. I don't want it to be a YouTube video. I want it to go out to more than just the people in our community. I legitimately want this to go more out of the community than in the community.
Are you because, shooting like a Netflix type of thing, like made for Netflix, or like one of those?
I actually have a publicist that I've been talking to upon completion of the movie. She's going to try to help me get it to like HBO, Amazon, Netflix, things like that. Yeah,
because those are, I think, some of the neatest ones, and like you said, the deliveries are, everybody's got one of those platforms.
Absolutely. And and then of course when upon completion and when it's time for the movie to come out, my goal is to have release dates in certain states and certain places where people can come out and see the film. If they don't have that, I'll be doing pop-ups and small pop-ups, of course, but just trying to get the word out and trying to change the image of, like I said, predominantly Black males, but of Black people as a whole, because there are terrible things that are happening to us because, number one, we're not privy to the same set of information that a lot of people are sometimes. And I say we as, in total, but more so people in the inner cities, more so people who are in places that don't share the same luxuries as other places, if you understand what I'm saying. So, like look what happened in Jersey with and Philly with Shaneen Allen. You know what I mean? A simple thing like coming over a drive she makes every day. And for those of you who aren't aware, Shaneen Allen is a young Black mother who works and lives in Philadelphia and works in New Jersey. And she does have a firearm for her protection, and she was transporting the firearm mistakenly across state lines. Just a simple accident, trying to set up for her child's birthday party or whatever it was. And long story short, she was imprisoned for this small infraction. Something that could have been let go with just, hey, you can't do that, because it was not a real crime. Nobody was being hurt. You know what I mean? She didn't maliciously violate the law. It was an accident.
But like these are mandatory minimum or whatever that's called, like automatic sentencing type of things where they.
And honestly, I don't even think that. And I hate. Here's the race card again. I pulled it twice in one interview, and I've never done that before. But I think if that was a young white boy or a young white male, the outcome would have been a lot different.
Well, here's the thing. I don't even know if that's pulling race card, dude, because I think that I think there's an agenda here. And if they want to stop people from owning guns, then slapping dudes like us on the wrist is ineffective. But every time they can poke at a mom, regardless of her situation, that's the kind of thing that no mom wants to hear that on the radio in the morning. And they're going to be able to twist that knife.
Yeah, like and they'll say, "Oh, well, I better not carry a gun if that's going to happen to me."
Exactly. Oh, I don't want to ever have that accident to happen to me. Oh, imagine.
And do you know what kind of horrors she went through? She had to leave her children unattended at home, her small children, for nearly a week because she was in jail and they wouldn't let her make phone calls to arrange for childcare. Like, this is ridiculous. Why is that acceptable? Like, why is this okay in America? It's not okay. It's not okay. And had Shaneen Allen looked like somebody different, Had she looked more like Woody Allen's friend, cousins, or whatever, I don't want to say wife because that's a child in it in of itself, but still, and look, she was related to Woody Allen, it'd be a whole different situation. But she's a single black mom out here working hard, grinding every day, not breaking the law, trying to do everything she can to follow the law. And one specific little thing she missed could have caused her to become a felon. Now, her case was picked up and she is okay now and she can still possess a firearm. But my goodness, can you think about she lives in Philadelphia, works in Jersey. Crime is everywhere around her. She's a single mother. She has to get home. I don't know, that kind of thing just upsets me to my core, man.
And like say that there's just levels, because then it's also emboldening the criminals that, they've basically just pounded all the law abiding. Like, hey, look at how difficult it is to defend yourself, and there's consequences on our side. Even on the good guys are going to be persecuting you. That's horrible.
It's terrible, man. It's terrible. So, again, that speaks more to the why I do what I do thing. The how is just, a lot easier it's a lot easier to do it than not do it. So if you want to do it, do it. Mike, you got a smartphone, you can be out there. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mike, I don't know if you know Mike from MW Tactical. He had asked on the YouTube side earlier, where did it go? When do you think the documentary is due to be completed?
Mike, stop trying to call me out on the air. Call me, brother. You got my number, Mike. No, the documentary is hard for me to do. Like I said, one, because I'm not a filmmaker. I started a GoFundMe for it, and I've got about $400 still sitting around trying to do things because I'm mostly coming out of pocket. But here's the thing for me. I am a teacher and also a father, and I have very little, limited time rather during the school year to do anything. So all of my work has to be done when school is out. So I'm only limited to summers to work on it. So I don't know right now when the documentary is going to be out because number one, of what I just told you. Number two, I'm going to kind of rework it because as it's growing, as time moves on, the documentary grows and it evolves. And it has evolved into something that's much too large for me to handle by myself. So I've had to solicit help from the outside. I almost said it. Shout out to the people who have agreed to help me. I can't. One major company for sure that everybody's familiar with. So in the future, they're going to be helping me do this, and they're going to kind of break some ground into the 2A film community, which is something that I think is coming out of this now, because now we're looking at potentially more films coming from this, which is a good thing, because now we can market to outside the choir and not preach to the choir continuously.
And it's the evolution of YouTube, really, right? Like these people that are getting massive skill sets and equipment, and the platform is restrictive at some point. And, with all the issues, we don't have to get into all the stupid YouTube issues, but now that if they can do stuff at a Netflix and Amazon level, that gets it out there to amazing reach. Yeah.
I mean, my buddy Edgar put out what was his documentary's name? Oh, good God, I forgot. It's on Amazon. It's a 2A documentary. And I mean, he put it out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'll have to get it to you. Edgar Anteleone is his name on social media. He's out West Coast, I believe. And he traveled the world doing a documentary on the Second Amendment, what people think, are guns good, are guns bad, just kind of getting some ideas out and feelers out from the common people. And it was a really, really good work that he did, and I appreciate that. And people like that have, helped inspire me. But at the same time, I want to go above and beyond.
Was it Rhetoric, All Talk, No Action?
That's what it was.
Okay, so that was an Indiegogo campaign, and it looks like, he only got 4 backers. That sucks. He's looking for 10 grand, but he was successful. He went around and did his thing.
Yeah, he did it on his own. I think he funded most of it, like I'm doing, out of pocket, which is hard on a teacher's salary. People don't understand that, which is why I set up the GoFundMe. And a Patreon, I think I have for. I know I set a Patreon up for it, but I am not the salesperson. Like some of my friends can get out there and pitch their GoFundMe's and their Patreons, and people hit them up. I hate asking people for money. I hate it.
Well, and it's one of those things that I'm hoping that I can help people get past that, because if we, whatever, like if you don't like editing, you can hire an editor, right? Like you just said, people that are passionate or interested in doing that kind of stuff. And yeah, let's work together, right, and overcome some of them. So.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And that was absolutely one of the great things about the AmCon portion of the GRPC weekend, because I did make a lot of contacts, and a lot of people were willing to share with me whatever they thought could help me. So I came away with a notepad of about 20 different numbers and names and email addresses of people who weren't even there, people that they might have just known, are into filmmaking or into this or into that, or this person might be a good fit for you to work with because of what you're doing or whatever. So I came away with a ton of contacts. So, definitely try to make the AmCon if you're in the media, or if you're trying to do major moves or trying to progress or push your brand and market in the 2A community up. But
or if Clover Tack is out here on the YouTube side, and his initiative is valid. If you just want to build bridges, if you just want to be a part of the glue or the stuff that holds the various efforts together, that's valid and necessary too. And by attending an AmCon, you can you're kind of get into the game.
What? That's crazy talk, man. No, it's like, but it seems like it's so common sense. Like it's just that, but it almost seems like it's, an absurdity, to try to build bridges or try to work together, because I feel like certain parts of the community are so me, or if you're not a part of a certain clique, then, because
sure.
I have people that I know have the resources, and every time they see me, they say, "Hey, Jay, how's the documentary? Well, let me know if I can do anything to help." But you've never donated a single dollar. You've never called me, because you've got my direct line. You've never called me and said, "Hey, what can I really do?" It doesn't even have to be financially. Anything that you could do, help is help. So, there's a lot of that out there too. So.
No, I hear you. It's not one big pie that we got to slice, though. So one way to look at it is we're all bakers. We just build some more freedom cake, and we've got more and more resources out there. We know there's 300 million people in this country, like you're focusing on. If we don't just focus on the conservative side, we look at all gun owners. There's a ton of potential out there, and again, people are moving in droves from old-fashioned traditional media to the new media, to the more flavorful, more nuanced stuff that we can offer out there, and people are more comfortable with funding that. And it doesn't take much. It takes 1,000 people giving you a cup of coffee to change a project from $300 a year to $3,000 a month. And once people start to see projects like Tony Simon, we talked about, like Kate, like yourself, like others that are putting good efforts out there, seeing those projects funded at that level, I think we're going to see people take their $120 that they're spending on cable TV or sports or whatever they're spending. We're in the richest country on the planet, remember. You can divert some of that entertainment money real easily and empower projects that we used to take for granted when YouTube was paying us. Sometimes embarrassing amounts of money. But that's another discussion. There was a question over here that came in from David on the Gun Channel side, but then Brian or Woods over on the YouTube side. He's a teacher as well, FYI. Got a bunch of teachers listening. They both asked a question that I'll ask you. Did you have who are your mentors, heroes? Who have you, what was David's question? Everybody's asking questions. Who in the firearms world has been the most influential on you?
All right, let's back up. I'll answer as many questions as you want me to, brother. So that's not a problem. But my mentors, my life mentors and heroes are my father and my grandfather. I'm named after my grandfather. I'm the third. My son is the fourth. There were two great men rather before me. my grandfather and my father. And those are the men that I look up to and pray that I can be like one day. You know, I'm 45, you know, my father's 80 years old, but I look at this man like he's, you know, Mount Vesuvius. Like that's how prominent he is in my life. In the gun community, I think one of the first people I ever looked up to, I'm going to give you two, because there's one that I looked up to for obvious reasons, because they were Black in the gun community and made me feel comfortable. And it was before Noir. It was Ken Blanchard, the Reverend Ken Blanchard out of Maryland. I don't know if you're familiar with Ken Blanchard.
Heck yeah, I'm
But
actually juggling emails to have him on the show.
oh, that dude, let me tell you something.
He's the godfather of all gun podcasts, period.
He is. And if it wasn't for Ken Blanchard, there'd be no Noir, there'd be no Aaargo Jay, there'd be no KD, no Maj, no Tony. Like, Ken is the literal godfather. Like it just is. I remember my first NRA show was in Indianapolis, and Ken was on Cam and Company. And I just stopped. I was like, oh, who's this brother? And I just listened to him talk. And I stood there the entire interview. And I didn't get a chance to meet him straight away. I ended up meeting him another day during that weekend. But I was just in awe of what the man had to say and how passionate he was. And I said, man, this is for me, for real. Like, I'm doing this because of him. You know what I mean? And Ken, you know, shook my hand, took a picture with me, whatever. I hadn't heard hide nor hair from Ken until one day I posted a video, and I decided to call my segment BMWAG, BM-WAG, Black Man with a Gun. Not even knowing that was Ken's copywritten moniker. Like, you know, so he calls me. How he gets my cell phone number, I don't know. But he ends up calling me at work one day, and some friends had notified him that somebody was using his moniker, and, you know, like, you need to stop them. You need to stop this person from using Black Man with a Gun, you know, this, that, and the other. I had no idea when I did it. When Ken called me and told me, I was so apologetic. I was like, Ken, it was not intentional. I apologize. I'll take it down. Ken said, the hell you will. You will leave that up and you will continue to use that. And it's just that kind of love, that kind of support and admiration that you get from a person like Ken Blanchard. You know what I mean? And I have nothing but great things to say about that man.
I can only assume, but I would assume if he would have said something like, you jerk or whatever, been worse about it, or giving you some, like, you know, just scolding, right? I would have maybe potentially said, no, this isn't worth it. Like, do I really need to do this? He's already doing it.
Well, no, I think I was already committed at that point. You know, however, it would have maybe.
Well, maybe not you, but if Ken was that kind of guy doing that.
Yeah, exactly.
The opposite, of course.
I mean, and it was, like I said, it wasn't my intention. I had no intention of doing that. I didn't even know. You know, I'm very bad. I don't watch YouTube videos. I don't watch podcasts or that. Even if I'm on them, I'm not even going to lie to you. I tell all the people that I'm horrible with them because I don't have the time in the day to really do it like I want to. And when I do, I have to binge watch everything. So it's like, you know, so I'm very selective as to what I watch and things like that. And when I got that phone call, I'll never forget it. I was at my desk and I made my class be quiet, and I took it because it was a Maryland number. And I know my daughter had lived out in Maryland for a while, and I didn't know if that was in relation to something with her or whatever. And then Ken says, hey, you know, that's me and that's copywritten. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. You know, I'll take it down. And he says, no, you will not take it down. You will continue to use it, and you have my blessing. And just for that to happen, said, I'm doing the right thing. And like you said, I get what you're saying now. Yes, you're absolutely right. Yeah. And for that to happen, you know, it empowered me. And it made me say, we're doing the right thing. These little, you know, petty videos that I'm doing that I, you know, am stressing over, maybe they are helping. Maybe they are providing some sort of insight, some sort of light to somebody's life. And, you know, I've been here trying to be an activist ever since, and more so on the activism side. I don't publish a lot of the activism because it's more private and personal to me, but I've been doing a lot more of it. But like all of this is a byproduct of Reverend Blanchard. So shout out to Ken. Ken, I love you, brother.
Now you said that was one of two.
Oh, yes. And the other was Eric, Iraq veteran. I I came up watching gun videos, and it was FPS Russia and Iraq veteran. Those were the two popular ones at the time. And that's when, that's before Barry died and all that. And, never did I ever think that Iraq veteran would reach out to me or whatever. Well, lo and behold, he reached out to me, invited me personally to his home, had me at his house, had me out on the range, did a private range day with him, all kind of stuff, just so accommodating. And I had looked up to him before because of his knowledge and the stuff that he had put out, with cool guns and things like that. But those two people were kind of who made me. I don't think Eric even knows that. So if Eric hears this, well, shout out to you, Eric. And that's kind of why I give Eric support when he catches hell on the internet, because people swear he's a racist, he's this, he's that. And I say, I don't know any racist who would have invited me into their home. You're like,
now this is what year?
This was, well, he's invited me to his home several times,
Right,
but the first time was the first year of the Iraq veteran shoot, whenever that was.
I'm thinking like 14, something like that.
13 or 14, yeah, somewhere around there.
And so
maybe even 12.
That was to put it in time frame for everybody. Then my real question is, and so Eric invited you down and had you hang out and kind of, I'm assuming, gave you some encouragement.
But I was already a fanboy of Eric's, period. Prior to.
No, I hear you. But I'm just setting this up. So he invites you down. He sees that you're out there doing your thing, and he invites you down. I'm sure he gave you some encouragement, some motivation, and some help or whatever, some insight or something. Did he have any requirements of you when he sent you on your way?
Not at all.
Yeah, that's the kind of person Eric is. And he was doing that before there was no incentive for him at all, except to see the community grow. And I know he gets stuff, but that's Eric, man.
Yeah, he'll give you the shirt off his back. He's that kind of guy.
He's not the only person who did that for. He's done that for lots of people, and he's encouraged all kinds of content that we see. And it didn't all work. It's not like he's some kind of Midas, boom, and you're like successful and you're the next whatever, right? He's just doing that because he's truly interested in seeing this stuff, and he sees the potential of it, right? So I don't know if he gets credit for that. I don't really pay attention to his stuff, and
I think he gets a lot more flack for being so opinionated, and people are just presumptuous of him because he's a Southern white guy. You know what I mean? And of course he's a conservative and a gun guy, so that stigma goes a long way. But on my YouTube channel, I have a video, my intro video, and in my intro video, I give Coleon Noir the credit of being my inspiration, and he was my inspiration. But we're talking about people that I looked up to and admired prior to my start, and that was why I said Eric, because I was watching his videos before I even had an inkling of, making a video and putting it on YouTube. So, but yeah, Eric and Tim and Hickok, those guys were all the ones that I was watching. FPS Russia, you know what I mean? And then when I got to finally meet all these guys and they were actually real good people anyway, it made it even better. Made it even better. So
you've been out to Eric's shoot then?
Yeah, I went out the first year and I didn't go out after that because a lot of times that was right at the time where everybody was being the same. So I didn't want to be a part of the whole big mosaic of shooters that was out there, only because everybody was covering it. And I felt like, I'd done it once. I did it, I'm good on it. Not a diss to Eric.
Cost. I mean, it's not without cost, right? It takes some expense. And is it during school?
Oh, definitely. No, it's in, it is October. And it is, I do have to travel to Georgia for that and whatnot, but it's a little expensive. But that really wasn't it. Like, it was just, I think my motivations have shifted from just going to shoots, just cause and for social media's sake. And I know Eric does it for a lot more than that, but that's what my thinking was at the time. So I stayed away from it. And now his wife is on me, like, Brandy, I'm coming. If you hear this, I'm coming. Like, she's on me to come again, to come this next year. Like, you gotta come. You gotta come back. You know, and like their entire family, I feel like they're just good people. You have to know them. You know, and
they are. And in fact, I'm sitting here. They were talking about Clover's trying to get in the pocket of Big Moss Pond. I'm wearing my Moss Pond T-shirt right now.
See what I mean? So, when I got there to Georgia that day, Eric took me to, I met him at Moss Pond. We went out and did some things in the back of Moss Pond. And I went and did what I had to do that night with my family, came back the next day and took me to the range, and we killed scorpions and armadillos and all kind of stuff, man. Like, it was awesome.
It
was awesome, man.
And here's a question that David asked on the Gun Channel side. Do you do a lot of editing, or is it one take and go? Or I guess there's a third option, take and take so that you don't have to edit, but do multiple takes so you don't have to edit the final cut.
Yeah, I usually just try to shoot straight through. Now I'm moving to more scripted videos where I'll write my script ahead of time. But when I was initially doing my videos, everything was off the top of my head, and it was pretty much in one take. The only editing that I would say was going on was, like I said, if I said something that wasn't true, so if I misspoke, if something showed to be unsafe, or if untruth, unsafe, and pretty much that. Or if I just made a mistake and flubbed some words or something like that. Like, those are the only things that I ever edited out. I never edited out like if I'm shooting, I never edited out misses. I never edited out anything that happens to you and your progression as a shooter, because it's real, and I think people need to see the mistakes happen. Because with the mistakes, there's overcoming those mistakes. So if I show myself making a mistake and then show me correcting that mistake and moving on from it, that'll encourage other people to fight through it, and it won't give them that false sense of bravado, like, these guys on YouTube don't miss, and they're this and they're that. No, I'm a regular guy. I miss shots. Like, I'm not the best shooter in the world. I'm a pretty damn good one, but I ain't the best shooter in the world. But it's taken me time to get to this point. So in my earlier videos, if I'm pulling low left, I'm pulling low left, because you'll see it.
Now, this is something that I don't know if you've put thought into this, but when you create a project or a channel where you allow observation of your errors and then gaining skill or not, right? Like, if you show your real shooting versus editing just down to the good stuff, that fosters a different audience, an audience that's interested differently than an audience that's more casually interested, I guess, or more intently casually. Is that something that you foster, or is that something that you pay attention to?
It is, because, and it's funny that you say that, because that was my train of thought when I first started filming and realizing the different nuances of YouTube and filming. I had to learn to be entertaining and educational. So I call it, I didn't coin this phrase, but I call it edutainment. You know what I mean? So I want my videos to be edutainmental, I guess, education and entertainment. Because the reality is, people are looking to us to gain advantage and advice on something that they're thinking about doing to protect themselves and their families. And I would be doing a major disservice to people if I was putting out bad information, okay? Or if I was putting out one way as the way. When I train, I've trained with multiple trainers, and no trainer has ever held a class and done things the exact same. There are similar topics, similar points, similar ideas and ideals, but for the most part, every class has been different. Okay,
it's like,
of course,
the music teacher, right? It's like they're all playing
absolutely,
guitar, but they're all playing it differently.
Absolutely. So, I think going into that, and that's what it was. It was just making sure that once my videos came out, they were entertaining, which was done by making sure that the camera angles were right and that you get enough B-roll or secondary footage to fill in the gap so that it's not boring. Because another person that I used to love to watch for the information side of it was Nothing Fancy. But you all know Nothing Fancy's videos can go on for hours.
Because it's like that an edited format where he's just kind of whatever that, I don't know what the technical word is, but where he just turns on the camera and starts going. He doesn't edit. It's
just open. He just leaves it open. And I appreciate that. But at the same time, that people watch 5, 10, 15 minutes of it and then get bored and flip off. So I tried to keep all my videos 5 to 7 minutes. Some of them went a little longer, some of them went shorter, just because I didn't want to lose people's attention span. But at the same time, the mass majority of the information I'm giving people can be received and retained in those 5 to 7 minutes. So,
now, do you do your 5 to 7 minute kind of window? Do you do that based on what you figure is efficient to get information out, based on feedback of what you get from your actual viewers, or based on like looking at the YouTube game and how the logarithms work?
All of it. All of it. You can't just look at one or the other. You have to encompass it all. Because if you don't, you're going to miss something. So it's all of it. Yeah. And
it's, well, I won't get too much into that because we've got some questions over here. So if you wanted to extrapolate on that, though, I'll let you go.
No. I mean, this is just pretty much all of it. Like I said, you have to be considerate of everything that helps make you, because you want to make sure when you give it back, you're meeting those targets. Because if you meet and exceed those targets, that means continual growth. So,
and that keeps it interesting for yourself too.
Absolutely, keeps you on your toes.
So Clover Tack on the YouTube side earlier had asked, how do you stay positive on the 2A front?
It's easy because I'm passionate about it. It's also easy to lose the positivity because I'm passionate about it. So, it depends on where he's specifically talking, because there can be so much darkness in the 2A world, in the community. So I don't know if he had something specific in mind, when he was asking that. But overall,
so I'll let him if he wants to extrapolate on that one. But then the second one was, how do you manage your time? Sort of a pivot to more of a how. Like, do you have a phone, apps, Google tools?
As far as the videos or making videos, finding time to film, or
just the whole thing, I suppose.
Man, I don't. I wish there was more. I'm working on an app that's going to put more hours in the day. I promise. So, there's just not enough time, man. You just have to make sure that you get things in how they come. A lot of people, and see, this is the thing. A lot of people don't understand. A lot of people that have YouTube channels don't have day-to-day jobs, and they're committed to that channel and that channel alone. Okay, I don't do that. I have a job, so I have a family that I have to commit to outside of work, outside of YouTube, and whatever else goes on in regular life. So it's hard for me to juggle time.
And that's a priority always. So
it does. And that is hard for me. And that was and continues to be one of the hardest things for me, is to manage and secure the exact amount of times that I need to be productive. So no, that is a problem. That is one of my main problems.
So that's one of the things that, again, we're hoping, that I've been watching valid, decent projects come and go over the years. Is it Aaargo Jay on Patreon?
It should be. It may be the documentary. Give me 1 second.
I got it. Okay, I found it. So, yikes. Yeah, we definitely got to work on this one. So I'm going to drop a link to the Patreon, and you can be his second Patreon. Definitely want plenty of opportunity for growth on the Patreon side. So one of the things I like to bring, hopefully, to everyone's awareness and into their projects is the fundraising aspect of it, and to the creators of content to appreciate to value what you're putting out there, because it's not frivolous and it's not inconsequential. what we put on the internet will be on the internet forever. What we put on social media platforms might be up to the discretion of the platforms and what they keep. But in general, the accumulation of effort that we're putting out there, the content that we put out there, will it all is accumulated. So it's all valuable. And when it's positive, useful 2A stuff, it's even more useful than some of the stuff that we get bombarded with, the entertainment stuff, let's call it. So first, as creators, I'm hoping to to challenge everybody to put financial part of it to make their projects financially sound, because that's important. If and into the audience of people that value this stuff, that participate and watch it, participate in the conversations that we have. Do we expect all of our 2A advocates to be part-timers, amateurs? Like if you're watching sports or something, are we all going to be, are we going to depend on our Second Amendment rights and those who advocate and those who are creating the atmosphere to change the cultural war that we're facing? The people that are, the knights in that, or the fighters in that? Do we want those people to all be amateurs and to have to succumb to, the demands of everyday life, which, we don't get to choose, the health and the happiness stuff, but then just the, being able to take a wife on a vacation, to appreciate her for her allowing the time that we put into these things, right? Or to take your spouse. I don't want to be sexist. So we got people on both sides of it that have to deal with their, the time they're taking away from their families and stuff. And do we expect our Second Amendment advocates to all be amateurs, to do this stuff on their own time, and to somehow manage to do all this stuff, extra on top of all this other stuff that we want to do? And if that's what we want, then that's what we have. But we don't have to live with that paradigm. We can change that. So I threw a link in there to your Patreon. And again, I want to encourage you to join in any of our 2A workshops. One of the things I'd like to do is we've got people on the Patreon platform that are super successful and putting out 2A content of all variety. And that means that there's audience out there that appreciates financially supporting valuable 2A efforts. And, if we can accumulate more and more of the gun owners out there, from real life, not just from YouTube, but from all aspects of the country that we live in, and even internationally, there's people in other countries that value our freedoms and have different attitudes on money. Imagine if we had a couple of people from really wealthy areas of the world that are understood. We first have to have methods in place for them to facilitate that transfer of funds, right? So focusing on our project's financial bearings, or whatever the word would be, foundations, is important. So so hopefully it take as much as from us as those of us that are using Patreon and stuff. But you've also got the documentary, which I think has got a lot of potential, especially on a platform like an Indiegogo or Kickstarter. With have you been watching Ian's project over on Kickstarter?
I have not.
Oh my goodness. So there's lots of potential out there for people that are interested in valid 2A stuff, Second Amendment stuff. And you've got more than just Second Amendment, obviously, with your project. So I think that you've got a potential huge audience. I think it was KD at the AmCon who talked about the discretionary income in the Black society, or in Blacks, whatever.
Yeah, we were both touching about that. Yeah, talking about we can buy Jordans, but we don't invest in the things that mean most to us. And yeah.
But anyway, seriously, it's combined effort. And when I've experienced it, when a couple of thousand people all throw a cup of coffee at you, it changes the playing field. And I guess, like I say, I'm sure that when we see projects funded at a different level, we'll start to appreciate, the power that those have, and they start to change society. And that's what we're all trying to do here is fight that cultural war, right?
Absolutely.
Anyway, so
I'm sitting here getting text from Mike at Munition Weapons Tactical right now. He said he wasn't trying to put me on blast. I said, I know you weren't calling me out, brother. Like Mike asked if we had and I never answered the question, so let me do that. Yeah. Mike asked, when did I have an ETA on completion of the documentary? And I don't, like I said, because of time constraints, but I can't put together a full ETA for delivery of the documentary until I can get the entire filming outline completed. That means every person that I want to film, I need to get them scheduled and completed and filmed, and all the B-roll footage and everything that I need to do. I need to have my entire outline complete before I can even look at a completion date, a final date, or a release date. And that's just because I don't want to do anything halfway. I could totally do this with the same cameras that I use to do my YouTube stuff. But would that transition well outside of our community? It wouldn't. So that's why I'm asking for more money than I probably should be for the equipment that I need, because I'm still going to film this. And I want to continue to, like I said, do these 2A based films. So, because I got a lot of ideas in my head.
It's all like go fishing versus teach me to fish, right? So like, hey, let me go on this trip versus let me get the skill set required to be able to, every time I encounter something, archive it.
Absolutely. And that's my thinking. My thinking is, because when I first wrote the documentary and I wrote the treatment, I reached out to Hollywood, legitimately to Hollywood, to actors, to directors, and people were like, "Oh man, you got a great idea. Let's run with it." And then they say, "But I want to change," and that's where they lost me, because the changes that they wanted to make made this to something totally different. Totally different.
And that's what happens when you've got one funding source, right? Like if you come along and say, we're going to take care of it for you with some, then that's I think the difference between like, was it Range 15? The movie based off of Kickstarter, and that was gun community, having fun, playing around, and just going.
Hell, I went to the theater to see Range 15 when they debuted it here in Wisconsin.
Heck yeah. I mean, again, who cares if you like every single thing about it? That's the gun community being able to play. And that was the concept of crowdfunding that allowed that to happen outside of the second largest entertainment industry.
It is. And I think it was a great movie. And guess what? It's on Amazon now. So at this point, so they did well with that movie. But that's kind of where I'm headed. You know what I mean? And that's why I want it crowdfunded, because the major thing that was happening when I reached out to Hollywood or what I felt was that they were trying to remove the voice. And it's that voice that needs to be heard, because it's authentic, it's genuine, and it's real, and people can identify with that. But they didn't want that, and they wanted to. The two people that I talked to both wanted the same thing. They wanted to change it, and they wanted to make it more encompassing of all colors. And eventually, maybe I'll get there. But right now, I'm specifically right now. This is about me and my journey and what I see, and the people that look like me, what they see and what they deal with, and the discrimination that we get when we go into gun stores, and the way that law enforcement treats us differently, the way that people look at us differently anyway. Doesn't matter how many pieces of paper or degrees I have on my belt. To most people, I'm just a nigger in their minds, and that's what we need to change. And that's the mentality that I'm shooting to shoot down, pun intended, I guess. And which is why, my tagline for my movie is, like I said, it's Black Ops, the documentary. And then, of course, it means Black opinion in popular society. But the tagline is changing the image of African Americans in firearms one round at a time. So, there's duality in it. One round, one bullet, one round in a boxing ring. Either way, it's a fight. So, we've got to change the image, because people need to know and be comfortable with all of the citizenry. We still got people that are afraid of Black people just because we're Black. We got people who are afraid of homosexual people because they're homosexual. We got people who are afraid of people who don't look like them because they don't look like them. One of my best friends is Muslim, and he has nothing but the greatest love for this country. In fact, served this country. On top of that, took 2 bullets for this country. On top of that, continues to serve this country as a firefighter. But he is Muslim. And am I supposed to turn my back on him because of that? Not at all. Can't do it. Won't do it. So, it's
kind of talking off here. A lot of that is kind of potentially engineered and stoked. Whenever to anyhow, that's another
It is, and I get you. I know where you're coming from, but that's the purpose of this documentary, is to try to shed some light on those misconceptions
And I
and
just
and break the stereotypes.
Now, I'm going to throw this out there. I'm going to challenge you. I didn't say nothing about this being a softball or anything. I don't think in any of my
That's
emails.
okay. I'm a baseball player.
So here's the thing. You talked about earlier that, get up and do it and don't wait for the perfect time or the perfect cameras to do your YouTube stuff. But now we're talking, looking for, to get, I understand, trying to get it to a professional level. But I want to encourage you to be motivated. Looking at the big picture and the playing field that we're in, we've got 2020 coming up, and I suspect that a project like what you're talking about, and I'm going to even venture to say, even if it doesn't get completed, even just the crowdfunding of it, which I believe can be, as advantageous to a project as the final project itself, because you have the potential with the press releases and the manipulation of the old traditional methods of like getting the word out. You're going to be
Right.
putting something up, potentially a project that you're going to be promoting at a time when we know that the election cycle is going to be focused on firearms, and there's sort of a void. And with Maj and with other entities out there, other players out there, bringing some light finally on real issues with urban firearms ownership or lack of ability to own firearms, right? That really causes. I think that even if your project isn't final and perfect and done to the T's for the election cycle, just the promotion of it not only could be enhanced by the election cycle, but I think it could be a valuable player in the election cycle, just because even the promotion of it will bring light to all the things you said, and those are super valid. And I think that I know that the antis use the ignorance or I can't say unawareness. I'm going to say ignorance, not intentional ignorance, but ignorance of the facts of firearms and violence in this country, and the stuff that you're talking about plays hand in hand with that. So the more light we can shed on those aspects of it at this particular time. So I don't want to throw you too much, put your feet to the fire here, but I just want to encourage you to take some of your advice from earlier in the show, and maybe I don't know. I was just thinking maybe work with like somebody who's already in film school that already has all that stuff, or maybe somebody who's already made a couple of videos, or maybe we can help somebody like a Cheryl Todd or like a Maj, who have massive resources. Maybe they already know somebody who's got the facilities and can get you to the level of having control of it. And I know we can help you with the fundraising side.
Definitely.
Because
and I'm glad, I'm glad for people like Maj and for Cheryl, because they have been supportive since day one, both of them. Maj and I are still very, very close, even though I haven't spoken to him as much as I usually have with him now running for city office. He's been a very, very busy man.
I can't imagine how busy he is.
Yeah, but no, definitely. He and I have like, Maj has been a part of it from the beginning. In fact, Maj was one of the people that I first wanted to cover. I'm still going to cover him, but now I have so much more to add to it. So you can see what I mean, versus just being regular BGM Maj, and then now we've got potential city council member Maj Toure. You know what I mean?
That's like a whole documentary, just everything
in and of itself, right? Right. Yeah. So that's what I mean by the documentary has evolved and grown. I keep rewriting, and one of the things that people told me to do is not rewrite, but I can't not rewrite,
because it's seriously evolving right now. It's happening.
It is, and I think that everything that is happening is pertinent. So a lot of that is just me being a perfectionist, but at the same time, I hear you, and you're absolutely right. My goal is to get trailers out by 2020.
Right on.
So
even that alone, I think, because you've seen it, it just has to get trending, and that alone get the conversation trending, which is really the goal, is to get people aware and shed some light.
Right. So my goal is to get actual Black Ops trailers in, but the cast lineup is growing. And I mean entertainers, basketball players, football players, baseball players, people that I had, like I said, comedians, people that I had no idea were into firearms. But one person talks to another person and they say, hey, check this guy out. And everybody's calling me or DMing me like, hey, I want to be a part of it.
Yeah, like you
I
talk
mean,
to somebody and you go, "Hey, who else should I talk to?" And then you're like, "Wow, I never knew." And thanks for the lead. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So, and of course, my core of people that I started with, I'm still going to highlight, like Kevin Dixie, like Maj, like Noir, uh, Hank and his wife, and things like that, because those, that speaks back to my roots and where I first started. But as we go around the country, I'm starting to find more and more people that are open to talking, because this is not something that people wanted to talk about before. Especially
Well, and
people of
that's the,
color.
and I've always
People
said,
of
like,
color didn't talk about it before. They
I'm,
didn't talk about guns because everybody thinks that when you talk about guns, you're a criminal.
yeah, and I think people like Tony or like what KD are doing, like on boots on the ground, like helping people, like just mentoring people in general, and then well, like Kevin at least mentoring people in general, and then showing them why Second Amendment's so valuable to them, and then like Tony's doing, bringing new people in and giving them a welcoming environment. They're examples who are like extraordinary because they're sharing what they're doing. But I suspect they can't be the only two people in this country doing that, right? There's got to be dozens, if not hundreds, of Kevins and
You
Tony.
you would think
Right?
so, but I don't think so. I think there's only one Kevin and maybe one Tony.
Well, I
Like
hope not, I
like
hope not, but hopefully we'll see more happen. But I think that again, those guys are exemplary because they're able to do what they do and share it as well as they do on the master the social medias. But I
and
bet you
Kevin
there's a lot
Dixie,
of people who
Kevin's
haven't.
program alone, Kevin's program alone is hold on, Mike from Munitions Weapons Tacticals telling me something, but Kevin's program alone really hits home for me because I tend to go on breaks on social media, and I did so more recently because I've been fighting this battle with depression, and in our community, it's so taboo to talk about. That's the no, and people need to know that it's okay. Because how can we be good gun owners? How can we be whole people if we're not whole? And I think Kevin's program, Aiming for the Truth, covers all those areas even before he mentions a firearm. They cover mental health. They cover the home life or family building. They cover financial planning and education. They cover employment. They covered all these different facets of what it takes to be a whole person in today's day and time. And then they introduce you to the gun. But, I came out on one of Kevin's lives and just kind of blurted it out that I had been fighting depression. And it turned into me going to be a speaker at one of Kevin's Aiming for the Truth events because people need to know that it's okay. So I'm trying to think of some cool hashtag to come up with about this too, but you'll be seeing a lot of this lately and people, I mean, coming up and people who are listening now, like, oh my God, but it's real. Like,
But
I didn't even know that I was suffering from it, huh?
they're tunnels or valleys, though. I mean, they're temporary, and you move on past them, and once you're aware that you're in them, it's a lot different than
It is.
realizing
Once you accept that this is where you are, you're already on your way to climbing yourself out of it.
Yep.
And that's what I had to do. And I've got to rebuild, relationships around me, in the community, outside the community, and my family, because everything was affected by this. And my family life suffered, and everything has suffered. And I'm not embarrassed anymore. I used to be embarrassed behind it, and I'm not, because so many people deal with this that somebody has to say stop. It's okay. But I think in our community that goes back to the whole, well, we say, mental health is the part of the problem why people have, these horrific shootings and this, that, and the other. And then, you know, tying those two together, is that going to put me in that same boat I was just talking about? And I get it. But at some point we have to step up and stand on our own 2 feet and say, this is what it is. And it won't get any better keeping it under the carpet. It won't. We lost several good people to suicide over the last few years in our community because they feel like they can't deal with talking about the depression or the things that they need to talk about to come out of their funk, you know? And it's a shame. It's a shame. And I refuse to be a part of it anymore. I refuse to be a part of that downtrodden, downward cycle that this community is taking a part of. It's about uplifting and bringing people up and out of those funks and those dark places and those dark valleys, and take them to the top of the hills that you were just talking about. So,
Well,
that's
we've got efforts like KD, right, who's doing it on the individual and like group
Mhm.
level, right? And then I was recently introduced to Walk the Talk America. Have you heard of that group?
I have, yeah.
And then Hold My Gun .org, I think. But Hold My Gun and up and I guess a campaign to like gun shops. You know, when you're having an issue, take your stuff to the gun shop. Kind of an easy way to facilitate that.
Oh,
But
absolutely, yeah.
so there's efforts out there like that that are happening to keep it on in the public, right? And I think that there's two things working against it. It's just in general, we don't talk about mental health stuff because we don't talk about mental health, sure, but we're also persecuted, right? As like you were kind of alluding to, 4473s literally spell it out in black and white, mental health, right? So that's a difficult black and white. I've got a mental health of 7, or I've got a mental health of 6. Like that's a super crazy thing that I'm trying to say there's like a gray area there. So so I think that we've got it working against us from just the society plus the potential legal side of it. And the good news is, like say, that as people are adding their voices and contributing to this conversation, more and more people will feel at ease and comfortable. And honestly, what we're talking about here is no different than what a sore shoulder or breaking an arm or something. It happens to some people. It happens to some people often. It sometimes it never happens to somebody, but it's something that happens and it heals and you go on with it. And if it was a situation, how there's those memes out there. If guns were a problem, we have X many guns and X many ammos and X many owners, you'd know it was a problem. Well, seriously, if depression and guns equaled issue, then there's a heck of a lot of gun owners and everybody gets depression, right? So, that's something that I think that we kind of addressed it here late in the show, but that's another avenue that we've got a lot of opportunity and potential in this, and it's all on our side. It's really just a matter of, like you say, kind of breaking some of the social, whatever, kind of whatever against it. And then once we own it, then they can't use that against us as easily anymore.
And that's my point. That's my point. My point is to make it ours and say it is okay. And once we own it, they cannot use it to attack us.
Right.
That's my whole point.
That if you got a depression, you can't drive your car. They're never going to suggest that. You can't operate a microwave or a kitchen utensil that would be dangerous. I mean, that's absurd.
Yeah. So
we're going off tangent. We're way over 2 hours. I appreciate your
absolutely.
I've got to play host here. I'm going to ask you 2 more questions. One that came in a while back, and I like the question, so I keep asking it. Where do you see your channel? Where do you see your projects in 5 years?
My channel, don't know, because I'm still on the fence about. I know I didn't talk about this, but I am bringing back my channel, and I am in the process of filming new videos. But I'm filming them with the goal of heading to television. So I'm going to be using these as kind
of like a resume,
kind of like a resume, or what do they call those? I'm drawing a blank.
Portfolio.
A pilot episodes for what could be, because all the tax shows and the gun shows are gone. There used to be Guns and Ammo, SWAT. Rob was on one, and a lot of guys were on another, like different shows, but there are no more home protection or self-defense shows out there anymore.
Right.
And if there are, I don't know where they are, except on YouTube. So I'm trying to swing myself back into television, because I think that's where we'll do the greater good. We'll reach more people. And of course, there's a paycheck with television, so better than the YouTube paycheck. But the paycheck is never part of the deciding factor. That's just a bonus.
Yeah, and you get to have influence in a positive way for 2A in an environment that's basically the opposite, right?
Absolutely. So I don't know where my channel is going, but definitely expect to see more videos coming out on the channel, especially with the restrictions on YouTube now. I had a video, an old video pulled, which was about a scope mount. Like, it was about an American Defense Manufacturing scope mount, and it got pulled. So why? I don't know.
Yeah, we've actually there's that video I mentioned earlier that we were watching, the Smarter Every Day. He used the you remember, like, I think it was Space Invaders, how the little alien invaders would kind of snow down like raindrops or snow, and the little bunkers or whatever at the bottom would shoot lasers up at them. They were using that as the like visual analogy for all the spam accounts and deliberate attempts to screw with the platforms, either Facebook or Instagram or whatever. And they were showing how their AIs, their bots, will try to take out as many of those artificial accounts as possible. And in some of these platforms, it's 1 million a day. So they're taking out tons of accounts every day. And they explained in there, like, every once in a while, a good guy's going to just, show up as something similar. Some amount of characteristics are going to, spoof the logarithm. And they say, even a 1% error, out of 300 million people is a lot of people. So it's a difficult challenge they've got. So sometimes it can seem like we're being persecuted as gun community, but we're also working on giant platforms. So, again, sharing skill sets and knowledge. Clover Tech out there on the YouTube side is a good one for that, like trying to help people with, making sure, like you mentioned, just knowing the logarithms and knowing the game of YouTube. And, who knows, something obviously caught something there and took it down.
Yeah, I mean.
Last question. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
It's got bread and meat in the middle, so it's a sandwich.
All right. Everybody's got an opinion, I guess.
What, you don't think it's a sandwich?
I figure if it's a sandwich, then it would be called a hot dog sandwich. It's a hot dog. It's a separate thing. Just sort of like taco case.
But then a burger. Is a burger a sandwich? They don't call a burger a sandwich. They call it a burger.
I think there could be an argument for it being a sandwich only because of its characteristics or whatever, but that's a good point. And that's why I say, like, a taco, a burrito, like, I think things that have their own names are outside the sandwich realm, but it's a funny question that there's no right or wrong. It's just something that going. But again, I appreciate you taking 2 hours with us today.
Me too, brother. I appreciate you.
See an email tag or whatever, but I'm looking forward to meeting up with you again. If we don't meet up before gun rights policy at the AmCon, then, and take the rest of the show here to let people know where to contact you. I'm going to drop the link to your Patreon again, but like where people might follow or plug anything you like, and then we'll
absolutely
wrap up. Charles.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm sorry we took 2 hours to talk about this. I hope we didn't bore anybody to absolute numbness.
I don't think we had a lot of interaction. I'm going to amend what I just said there. I'm going to talk for a second here and interrupt you, and because people have been asking, are you going to KD's event? I know we talked off air, but I'll let you address that, and then I'll shut up.
Okay. What is that? This Saturday?
It is. It's this weekend already.
I was not planning on it, but now I'm contemplating. I don't think I will be there, only because I've been away for the last 3 weeks from home. I had NRA, and then my kids graduated. My oldest daughter graduated from college, so I was just down there. My youngest daughter graduates today, and then I've just been traveling, so I need to spend time at home with my son. I have not been home with my son like I need to be, and that is absolutely going to happen. So I am going to say, no, I'm not going to be there. However, both Kevin Dixie and Ken Scott, who are going to be there, are great guys. You guys are going to be in good hands. You're going to learn a lot. And, I just hope that you guys spread the word and make that event as successful as it should be, because it's going to be a powerful thing. So
I agree. I'm really looking forward to being an annual event and seeing the being like an incubator, right? I'm looking forward to what the channels do once they gain some skill sets there and some networking.
Right. So, now what was your last question? Oh, no, that was it. You said.
How do you contact Aaargo Jay?
I am available on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Aaargo Jay. So it's AAA, 3 A's, always 3 A's, RGO Jay. If you want to know how I came up with the name, I'll tell you guys later. But it's 3 A's, RGO Jay. AAA, RGO Jay on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. I am most active on Instagram now. I hate Facebook, but I use it because it's a necessary evil. And I despise Twitter even more. But I still am coming around to using Twitter. I also have a Patreon, like we just talked about. You can find me under Aaargo Jay, or the documentary name, which is Black Ops, the documentary, or Black Ops Doc. I also have a GoFundMe for the documentary, www.gofundme.com/blackopsdoc. And you can get to me there and donate money and donate funds. And I'm very transparent about what's going on with the funds. The funds that I've used from the GoFundMe, they provide my transportation, my housing, my food, and travel costs, and get me to certain events to film other people. So that's what I've been using it for so far. Ultimately, it would fund the entire film, but we'll see what happens. So you can always, like I said, reach me at AAA-RGO at anywhere.
Awesome. Thanks for doing what you do. We'll have you on in the future. We've chatted a bit off here, maybe doing some panel stuff, and we'll end it with our friend Charles here in Tucson.
All right.
Guys of gunwebsites.com encourage you to take a CCW class every year, practice at least once a month, and carry every day. Thanks for watching gunwebsites.com.